Welcome back to the Pit Stop Ranch. This video, we are going to start addressing some of the drivability issues with our pale horse. And our plan is to start with a basic tune-up. Plugs, the wires are new, the cap and rotor look brand new. And do the surprising amount of little fiddly mechanical adjustments on the engine. Something that I'm a little surprised with, given my experience dealing with 10-year newer sequential multi-point fuel injected vehicles, where a lot of this stuff is handled quite readily by the electronics and the programming. This being a very early sequential multi-point fuel injected vehicle, there's a fair amount of mechanical adjustments built into it that are sometimes necessary to get into and adjust, and we will go through and talk about all that. That should establish a nice baseline so that we can go through and eliminate timing issues and so forth as a possibility for the reason why it sometimes wants to stall. Now, one of the things that we have been sort of dragging our feet on the pale horse here has been changing the spark plugs. And this can be summed up with a simple misunderstanding amongst 50% of the ranch dizens that require removing the upper intake manifold. However, the other 50% correctly pointed out that no, the only thing that's a problem is the heater, coolant, air breather for the exhaust emissions equipment. That's the big thing. The air intake over here can be removed easy enough. Get out and out of the way. Now we can get in there and work. Driver's side, which is usually the most difficult side because of steering and brake equipment, actually looks like it's going to be fairly straightforward and very typical small block Ford. All of the plugs are angled to the right of it as you're looking at it from the outside. The heads are interchangeable, so anyways, go ahead and check the gap and put them on. Now, for those of you who haven't worked on many cars with a Dizzy, or you're just brand new altogether to the hobby, when we're replacing spark plugs, you always want to do them one at a time. For multiple reasons. In this case here, in general, you want to do it so you don't screw up which wire goes to which plug, assuming it's correct. Worn. Autolite Platinums, a little bit worn. Burn doesn't look terrible. It was a little bit on the rich side. Reading your plug is an important skill that you should do. You can look up exactly what you're looking for. Yeah, timing's good too. So I better confirm that, but yeah, more knowledgeable people than I can give you a course on that. Now, platinum plugs are required for cars that have platinum plugs. They're not required for Platins that didn't come with platinum plugs. Now, will platinum plugs benefit your older car? Yeah, there's some debate on that. I think
You definitely don't have to replace them as often, which is a distinct advantage. However, on these project cars, you know, it'll take you, odds are you're not going to put 36,000 miles on your project car for the rest of the time you own it. And the reality is, you're probably going to either sell it or do an engine swap or something before you'll wear out conventional plugs. And their benefits are indeterminate. Now, one reason why we want to do one of these one at a time, also, in addition in this particular example, is we're not sure if the injectors are working properly. So we want to pull each spark plug, and we want to keep track of what hole they came out of. This one here came out of cylinder number 5, which is driver's side front cylinder, because that's the way Ford like to number them. So keep track of it, do that. And then when, probably also not a bad idea to go ahead and put it on the body of the can. Like that. So that as we're working on this thing, we can determine if we've got an injector problem, because the injector, if we've got certain cylinders, certain injectors are, say, not delivering sufficient fuel, those cylinders are going to show up as lean. And since the O2 sensors are in the collectors after the at least 4 cylinders, if not all 8, going together into a single exhaust. And I think in this case it's O2 sensors are down there. So what you would see is it averages the exhaust gases of a whole bank together. So if you're getting rich and lean on one bank, as readable on the plugs, it's about the same. This one's barely used, barely fired. Maybe a little, yeah. Anyways. So if you got rich and lean plugs in the same bank, that means that the lean plugs are cylinders where the injectors are not working properly. If they all look the same, then you're doing pretty good. Then you're fine. It's not a injector issue. Okay, these are the spark plugs we took out of Pale Horse. And one of the big reasons why we wanted to change the spark plugs is because we were uncertain at their age or condition. Now, the rust on the metal side suggests they've been in there a long time. They are actually Autolite Platinums. They do not appear to have been run much. So they're actually, in spite of the rust, they're actually probably just fine. And if we really wanted to, we could probably throw them back in. Now, it was important that we marked which hole each one came out of, because we want to compare what the burn looks like on each one. A significant variation in burn would be a symptom or a sign that there is a possible problem with the injection system, or specifically the injectors. Either and given the challenges we had with the fuel system and all the crap and crud and corruption that was in the fuel system, small debris might have gotten past the filter and could have easily plugged up some of the small orifices in the injectors, resulting in them not functioning properly. The other thing too is, since it had been sitting, I'm certain when they shut it off they didn't bleed down the fuel system, so there's a good chance that some varnish built up in the injectors and would cause them to either not function properly that way as well. So there's a lot of reasons to be suspicious of the injectors. However, a set of rebuilt injectors, very wildly in price. There was one person advertising a full set of 8 for $64, which means $8 an injector. And basically, they just took a set of injectors, tossed them in a sonic washer, let them sit overnight, pull them out, blow them out, clean them up, box them, and then send them in exchange for the ones you have. Those might work. They might work great, but at $8 a whack. And the fact that they didn't turn around and do any quality, I don't know if they did any quality control. There was no indication in their advertisement that they then flow tested them to confirm that they're within accepted parameters for stock injectors. That which leads me to believe that they didn't do anything more than clean them good and then put some new O-rings on them and ship them out. Again, that might be totally fine. You know, if you don't have a test bench, that might be the limit of what you can do, and that's fine. And the price reflects that. However, we wanted to maybe eliminate the possibility of just throwing parts at this. It's something we've been trying to do more now than we have at the beginning of the project. Mostly because we know better. However, we succumb to the temptation of just throwing parts at stuff sometimes to just move it on. You know, we just assume a certain condition. So, these old spark plugs, and we're going to look at them. And then based upon what we're looking at, we can kind of come to a conclusion about how the engine was running before we pulled these. Okay, at first glance, all of these look very, very similar. There's not any of them jumping out as being overly rich or overly lean, or more rich than lean relative to the ones around them. 3 looks a little bit rich versus 4 and 2. As does 1, but it's so close that, and number 5 is a little on the rich side versus 6 and 7. So, an argument exists that with that variation, and I'm going to say that's a pretty minor variation. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, there around the porcelain insulator is a little bit of dark soot. And that would be what I mean by slightly rich. It's not bad though. It's if the plugs in any of my carbureted vehicles look like that, I'd say they're running really good. Whereas with this one here, you see the ash on the porcelain, and that's actually pretty good burn there. And on one side it looks a little richer, that would be the upper side, and that'd be the lower side, or the other way around probably. But anyways, one side is facing more down into the chamber than the other. Now the other thing to note is where this color change happens on this strap. If you look at all of them, certain point the color changes on the ground strap. And that is an indication of timing. If it's too far forward, it's I believe too early. Too far down, it's too late. Or I might have that backwards. But if it's right here on the transition, that's just right. So timing with regards to these plugs is just fine. Now, these plugs were in the vehicle and kind of run a bit before we played with the ignition timing. We pulled the distributor a few times. So we still need to check the timing as it sits right now. Also, I took it for a test burn with the new clutch cable in it before doing any of this, and it was knocking and pinging a little bit when loaded down and lugged down. So I think a wide open throttle. So I think our timing is a little bit advanced. We'll go through the process of checking that. So prognosis right now. There's also a bit of oil on the threads, which and a little and some of the crustiness on the inside here probably indicates a little bit of oil burn, which for a car that's been sitting for 15 years, I would be shocked if it wasn't burning oil. It's going to take some thermal cycles for the rings to seat back in, and valve seals, without a doubt, are probably chewed. So if it wasn't burning a little bit of oil, I'd be surprised. Now the challenge with that is, depending upon how much, that could potentially damage the cats, which would then put us in a whole different challenge as far as getting it through smog. So as of right now, there's nothing obviously huge that we need jumping out at me about the combustion process within the engine. Nothing that makes me overly concerned. Next step is going to be, of course, finish the tune-up with by doing checking the timing, getting a timing set, get the idle set, and then make sure that the throttle position sensor closed is within spec. And once that's all done, we should be good to go. We will have eliminated anything out of tune, so that next would be diagnosing individual components that might not be functioning properly. And we'll go through that as things jump out at us. Okay, do it. Where's it supposed to be? Supposed to be 0.9 to 1.0, and we're at 0.8.
Low.
So we're a little bit low.
So now, and
it's jumping all over the place.
Not stable.
Not stable.
All right, so mass airflow system temperature.
Yeah. Okay, we're checking the timing. We've already pulled our timing chip out. It's right here in the Fox Body tool holder. Okay, go ahead and fire it up. Okay, checking we adjusted the engine idle to 650 with the idle control valve disconnected. Now we're checking the throttle position sensor yet again. Since we've diddled, we're diddling around with everything else. That's the final check. You want it somewhere under 1 volt. Depending on different sources on the interweb, anywhere from 0.8 to 0.99. So we have our straight pin jammed into the conductor, safety third. The other end of our multimeter is on the negative terminal on the battery. Engine off, key on. Throttle position voltage is 0.92. So we're good. Go ahead. So now we got to let it run for 2 minutes since we've played with everything, so that the computer can once again figure out where the hell everything's at. And so that's what we're going to do next. Hit it. Okay, we just went for a quick little jaunt, and this thing's idling like poop. So we're going to test the mass airflow sensor on the off chance that that is the problem, because it is.
Put it to idle?
I think you start it and let it idle. It is very warmed up. It's properly warmed up. I don't know if it's any smoother than now than it was 2 minutes ago, but this morning we took it for a fun little jaunty ride, and it was having issues. So it seems like it's firing on all cylinders. I heard somewhere that the ECU, there's a couple capacitors on it that will swell up, and when they do, it'll give you problems. But I think this is running well enough that that's not the case, not the problem. Out of curiosity, we could potentially open it up and take a look and see if we see any big capacitors that look bulged.
And that is basically a tune-up on one of these Fox Body Mustangs with the fuel injection. I find it remarkable how it's definitely clearly that in between step where a tune-up meant plug wires, cap rotor, oil change, checking timing, checking your timing throw, playing, a lot of little fiddly things. If you go back far enough, even further, cleaning the points or replacing the points and adjusting them. Let's get everything dialed in just right. And our current cars, where everything's locked down, there's not even a distributor to play with the timing on. It's all completely controlled by the computer. So this is this weird, ambiguous in-between step between much older setups that we commonly see here at the Pit Stop Ranch and the completely modern cars, which is all the tuning is done with the laptop. So I hope you got something out of this. It has been a learning experience for us, and next step on this is now that we've got a clean baseline and we know all of the stuff that we have done, we found issues. Like I said, one of the unexpected things we found that made a huge difference was the mass airflow sensor was out of spec and jumping around. So we replaced the mass airflow sensor, and that has made a big improvement. However, once out of the warm up open loop, when it goes to closed loop, it's still idle is fluctuating quite a bit. Now, it isn't the rhythmic fluctuation trying to stall like it was. It's more of a random change. So we still need to figure out what's going on with that. If you enjoy what we're doing here at the Pit Stop Ranch, please hit the like button. And if you want to support us, if you would, and you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate you. And until next time, have a Mustang-tastic day.